Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm looking across at a man so lethal, the dark is scared of him. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who moves in the shadows and walks in the light. Don't even know what that means, but it sounded cool.
Sounds good. Don't know what it means, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, it gets the people going.
I feel like you've been getting a lot more comments recently from listeners on your intros.
You know, G, I'm glad you feel that way because I feel like the level of comments, it's been consistently how great they are. And that's what I tell myself. So yeah, it's wonderful.
I love the story that you tell yourself. It's a great story.
Look, it's working. It's just, leave me alone to my delusions. People like the intros, dude, except for not everybody.
Yeah.
I've been told off for my intros from people. I'm just like, well, we're going to be the same people we are all the time, whether we're talking about something difficult or not. Anyways, so G, today is like, this is one of those ones where I think everyone's going to be able to relate to it. And there'll be sometimes when you're going to relate to it a lot more than others, because it's how to rebuild, like how to start over without giving up. And it's, wouldn't it be great if you could just walk straight up the hill and you're like, great, it was a straight line. It was a straight line of success.
Unfortunately, life has its peaks and its troughs.
Yeah.
And you're going to go through low spots, and sometimes those low spots are starting over, whether you get divorced or somebody dies or your business blows up or you make a big mistake, whatever it is, you're going to go through stuff in life and you got to figure out how to rebuild. And if you are going to rebuild, let's make sure we do it the right way.
Yeah, 100%. Well, G, as always, I like to look at these things, and I was inspired by a little story about a man named James Braddock. And you may or may not, I'm guessing you probably know who he is once I get to the end, but you don't, do you know that name straight away?
I know his name, yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, hey, you constantly surprise me, G. Well done. So James Braddock was born in 1905 in Hell's Kitchen, like not an easy place to be born. And he was, he grew up in New York. Obviously, that's where Hell's Kitchen is for those of you that don't know, because I don't expect everybody to know that. And he got into boxing. His dream was actually to play football for Newt Rockne at the University of Notre Dame, but he, as he put it, he had more brawn than brains. So he was just a really tough dude. So at the age of 21, he becomes a pro fighter, right? And this is what's so wild. Like when you become a pro fighter,
it's funny to think about like being a football player and be like, this game is too intelligent for me.
Yeah, I need to do something that's more brutal. Well, but this is what's so crazy about boxing back then. So he turns pro at the age of 21. After 3 years, check this. His record was 44-2-2. He had 48 fights in 3 years. Like that's unheard of now for pro boxers. Yeah. And 21 of those were knockouts. So what he was known for was this dude he had a great chin. He could take an absolute beating, and he had some good power in his right hand in particular. So he keeps going through. He's getting, he's progressing up the ladder. And then unfortunately he gets a big chance after he knocks out like a highly regarded fighter, and he gets a chance to fight for the title, but he loses 15-round decision. And unfortunately what happened in there was he fractured his
15-round decision.
Yeah, just imagine that. Yeah.
Brutal.
He fractures his right hand, and then his next 33 fights, which probably took like 3 months, but based on how they did things back then, were way worse. He only won 11 of the fights, and he basically had to give up. Well, if you know anything about the times, what was coming around the corner was this thing called the Great Depression. So this guy goes from being like, man, I'm on my dreams, I'm going somewhere, to like he could never get his hand right. And so he ends up working as like a longshoreman. He's working on the docks, just brutal physical labor. He's having to take government assistance for him and his wife and his kids. He's absolutely broken down. And the thing is, his hand was still so bad, he had to work with his left hand mostly. So he became left hand dominant during this time. Well, 1934 rolls around. They're right in the midst of the Depression. And he gets a call from his old manager and says, hey, there's this guy who's coming up the ranks and he wants to fight you. And they basically set him up to be, a stepping stone. Come fight this guy who used to be pro, knock him out. And it's kind of like, oh, hey, keep you sharp and move up. Well, Braddock wasn't playing along, and he beat the guy. He knocked him out in the 3rd round, which was not what was supposed to happen. Well,
ouch.
You get your knockout. Guess what? You get another chance. So then he gets to fight a guy named John Lewis, who was a future light heavyweight champion. Boom. He wins one of those as well. So then he faced another guy, and it boils down to he gets to face Max Baer in 1935, who was the heavyweight champion of champions. Like he was a 10-1 favorite for the fight, and everybody's like, Max Baer is going to destroy this guy. Max Baer said that he did not prepare himself for this fight. He took it so lightly. He was like, I'm just going to show up and win. So he was like mocking him as he was entering the ring and took it just very kind of did the bare minimum. Contrast that with our man Braddock, who this was the exact quote. He said, I'm training for a fight, not a boxing contest or a clowning contest or a dance. Whether it goes 1 round or 3 rounds or 10 rounds, it will be a fight and a fight all the way. When you've been through what I've had to face in the last 2 years, a Max Baer or a Bengal tiger looks like a house pet. He might come with me with a cannon and blackjack, and he would still be a picnic compared to what I've had to face. This dude's been through some stuff.
That's called perspective.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, I have to get punched in the face some more? That's fine. So Max Baer comes into the ring. It's at Madison Square Garden, man. Like this is the deal, man. 1935. Max Baer comes in the ring. He's mocking him. He's like making the crowd laugh. Like literally, he's just there to kind of entertain and, oh yeah, this guy's going to get knocked out. Well, he starts landing a few heavy shots on good old Braddock. Problem is, Braddock just keeps coming. And so like it actually says that Max Baer started to wonder what was going on with this guy. Like he's like, why isn't this guy stopping? He just kept coming, just kept coming, just kept coming. It ends up going to a decision, and our man, known as Cinderella Man, if you've seen the movie, ends up beating Max Baer on a unanimous decision. He outpointed him in 8 rounds to 6. And I love that story because, man, you talk about like brutality and like you think life's going to go one way, and then hard left turn, things you can't control, your hand breaks. And it's like, oh, yeah, you want to be a boxer? Well, here you go. Work on the docks.
Do you think the first time that he was called Cinderella Man that he took it as a compliment?
I mean, probably not, because what man wants to be called Cinderella?
Who wants to be called Princess Man?
Right, exactly. And that was they gave it to him after the first fight. When he came back and won that fight that he wasn't supposed to, that's when he got the nickname. Okay. And then he just rode that name all the way up. But if you haven't seen the movie, you should see it. It's a great movie. I remember when I saw it. It's a very, very inspiring movie. And do they dramatize it? Of course. But
so we're going to talk about how to make your comeback.
Right.
But it's not just be hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Braddock's story is basically a Rocky story.
Oh, 100%.
You just can't knock me down. And if you do knock me down, I'm going to get back up, and I'm going to keep getting back up until you're tired.
Right. Wouldn't it be great if you just had the kind of face that could take a pounding until the other guy's like, man, I'm tired of hitting you.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know if that'd be great, but it would be a form of strength.
It is one way to win.
Yeah. It's not the way I'd want to win, but it is a way to win. So the thing is, man, we all love those comeback stories, and you hear the Braddock story, and some of you may have recognized it as I was telling you. You're like, yes, isn't that great? You know what it feels like when you're in the middle of it and you're on the longshoreman? It doesn't feel great, right? Like because your comeback story, guess who gets to determine if it's a comeback story? You, right? And like in the moment, if you're looking for inspiration, oftentimes it's very lacking. Like I don't think he was sitting there counting his blessings whenever he's like, man, I can't even feed my family and I'm working my tail off.
Yeah, well, at one point he was thinking like, I'm a few fights away from glory.
Yeah.
And then that completely turned on him. And then he gets to a place of like, what if I don't even get the chance to step in the ring again? And then when he does finally get back in the ring, it's like, how many times am I going to have to get punched in the face to make it back just to where I was, let alone to surpass where I was?
Well, I think what he had was he had established the character trait of just going all in. And I think because he had, think about how much that would have fueled he was already like a very tough guy. Mm-hmm. And then to go to something that he didn't like that much, like I think what's so admirable about that story, he had the chance that he wanted. He got to fight for the title, and he was found wanting. He lost the fight.
Yeah.
And so to then, well, I'm going to get right back in there. Oh, but you picked up this physical disability that actually limits you, and you're getting worse. That's like feedback in the worst form.
Not everybody decides after they come, this close to the greatest victory that they're willing to climb the mountain again.
Right.
Braddock exhibits one of the prerequisites that for today in what we're talking about. Like, look, this is for anybody's life. This isn't just like a boxing comeback. Like I said, this is your marriage failed, your business failed.
Yeah.
You made a moral mistake in life or whatever it is. This can be a massive rebuild or a minor rebuild. Whatever it is in life, there's a couple prerequisites. One of them, it's what Braddock's got, is you've got to have some grit, right? You don't have to have the same grit as a boxer.
Right.
That's pretty much peak grit.
Yeah.
Right. But for any rebuild in your life, it's going to take some grit. You're going to have to be willing, just like, okay, I'm going to have to put in the work. This is going to be hard. It's going to be hard many days in a row. And I'm just going to push through because I know what I want is on the other side of this. And I would also say you have to have a positive attitude.
Mm.
It's one of my prerequisites just for life in general, but certainly for the rebuild. And the reason why is if you have a negative attitudes just spoil everything. It's why
Yeah.
I don't like them and I don't want negative attitudes on my team. You'll take something that was good and it's like just pouring salt in a chocolate chip cookie,
Yeah.
right? Like everything, we have the formula correct and you're ruining it
Mm.
with your negative attitude. If you have a negative attitude on your rebuild, what's going to happen is you'll be halfway through the rebuild and you might be doing everything right. But because when you get a negative attitude and you're tired, you're going to start saying, well, why do I have to even put up with this?
Right.
Why don't these people do this? And you're going to turn into pridefulness. You're going to turn into entitlement and you'll mess up a great build that you have.
Yeah.
Negative attitudes, they just destroy everything they touch.
Yeah. I'll say, I think everybody knows this when they listen to the podcast, but Garrett and I always put hours into these things. So what we might say in a sentence, or you might hear in like a 5-minute segment that you may be like, wow, that's really good. It's come from a lot of thought and consideration. And I would always encourage people to spend time thinking about what they're thinking about, to consider what they believe to be true, to consider how they live their life. And I know that not everybody's going to do that. So if you were just going to be real brass tacks honest and just go, look, I just need like a simple, we're not growth hack guys, but what you just gave is probably the closest thing we'll ever give to a growth hack. If you could just start recognizing when your attitude turns negative and be like, whoa, I'm going to catch that and not be negative, you could, and I don't say this lightly, you could upgrade your life massively just with that one thing.
Well, it's like I mentioned this yesterday in Mighty Men. I think I've mentioned it here on the podcast before, but Charlie Munger is famous for his inverse philosophy,
Yeah.
right? What is the thing that would ruin something? And don't do that thing,
Yeah.
right? If you want to ruin anything you have in your life, just bring a bad attitude to it,
Yeah.
right? So the inverse would be like, if you want to not ruin stuff in your life, always have a good attitude.
Yeah. Next time you catch yourself complaining, stop it.
We'll address it here in a second, but most of the rebuilds in life are because you're somewhat responsible.
Yeah.
There are very few rebuilds in life. We'll talk about them. There's very few rebuilds in life where it's like, I did nothing wrong. I'm a perfect angel.
Right.
Right. But whether you are a perfect angel or not, even when you have those rebuilds, you need a positive attitude to rebuild it. And a bad attitude is going to make it a poor rebuild.
You said something once on this podcast that I say to people a lot. When has a negative attitude ever helped? Because people that I work with, some of my clients that don't know me will be like, man, you're so positive. And I'm like, never seen a negative attitude ever help anything. And they always kind of go, huh. Yeah, that's literally the response. They're like, wow,
I never
that's a good
thought
point.
about it that way.
I'm like, yep, it is. Obviously, I don't give you any credit for it because
It's cool.
Yeah, anyway. Actually, I have this sound effect handy on all my conference calls with my clients. All right. So we're going to give you this process and we're going to go through. Here's a little, we always like to give you some prerequisites like Garrett talked about. So grit and attitude and positive attitude are big. Here's a little thing. If you don't want this to take 15, 20 years, what will speed this up and what will accelerate your rebuild is having a great circle of people around you. Because when we were reviewing this, I said, gee, do you think this is something you can do on your own? And you did what you often do, and you sat back and looked up the sky, and you said, you could, but it'll take you a lot longer. And we're saying could. We're not saying that you definitely will. This is not an encouragement to do it on your own. We're saying quite the opposite. Like, you need to be connected
No,
with people.
if you're trying to get into marriage number 2 after marriage number 1, and that's a divorce is one of the ones, it can be 99% the other person's fault, but you're still in it, right? You're a part of it. And it can take years when you're by yourself or when you don't have the right type of people in your life that can help you see, that can help you understand like, hey, this is where you need to grow. Yeah, that other person stinks and they jack some stuff up, but also here's what you need to address. If you try to do that by yourself, sometimes it's 3 years later, it's 5 years later. And you start because it's all pattern recognition.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, brilliant IQ, high genius pattern recognition, and especially even if you are a genius, sometimes people's emotions and personal bias can ruin their pattern recognition.
Right.
So if you don't have those things and you're not completely unbiased, it might take you 3 years, 5 years, 7 years to pick up the pattern recognition of like, man, like that kind of, there's this thing about me. And that actually had an impact on how my marriage went.
Yeah.
If you have other people around you, you can get to those conclusions a lot quicker. And what you've got to decide is that you want to win, right? more than feel good about myself, what I want to like, just tell me what I have to do. Like, tell me what I have to change. Tell me how I have to be. If you'll have that attitude, the Jim Rohn champion definition, breakfast is the feedback is the breakfast of champions. If you have that attitude, you're going to win in life. And you know who gives you feedback? It's not you, right? Feedback
Yeah.
comes from your friends.
Yeah. And I would even go a step further, just say that's the way God designed it. Like I don't like, that's what I mean. It's not a suggestion. When he said it's not good for man to be alone, we know he's talking about marriage, but that's not just limited marriage. That was AKA like doing this work on your own is not what you're meant to
God's
do.
institution,
Yeah.
right? That he created is family.
Right.
And then families become tribes.
Yeah. Exactly
Tribes
right.
become nations,
Mhm.
right? And God builds through community.
Yeah. There you go. Well said, G. As always, I
got you.
I could have said that in 7 sentences. Thank you for saying it in 2. Okay, so let's move into this, G. So the very first step, and one of your team brothers made this very famous and popular in society, is the old ownership word. People love extreme ownership as a book.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
Jocko nailed it. I will say that, you know what, Jocko, if you read that book, what you'll find is principles.
Right.
And so what Jocko has is an incredible personal story to go along with highlighting those principles.
Right.
The things that he teaches are not new.
Right.
Right.
That's what principles are. They're not new. Yeah.
A lot of what pretty much all that he teaches is leadership principles. And there's a lot of what Jocko teaches in extreme ownership that's in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Jocko just has a fantastic personal story to articulate those through.
Yeah.
Right. And he lived these things and has the fruit of them on one of the most extreme battlefields in a once in a generation, war that he's at the center of. And his life tells a great story to teach some incredible points.
Right.
However, he doesn't own those things, right? It's like ownership it's based on principles. And if you want to rebuild your life, if you want to rebuild your business, your marriage, whatever it is, the first step is you're going to have to take ownership of it. This was my dad. I heard this all the time. I hated this one when I was little, but he'd say, son, if the shoe fits, wear it.
Yeah. Right.
And what that meant is, because I was really good at making excuses as a kid. I would tell you all the reasons why it wasn't me. I didn't do it. It's not my fault. And because it's the strategic in me.
Yeah. No, I know why.
I can see how if you use it in the wrong way, I can see like my way out.
Yeah.
And what my dad was teaching me was, it's not like son, being a man is not how can you get out of responsibility. Like son, being a man is growing and taking responsibility for all these things, because you're not trying to avoid guilt. What you're trying to do is build. Yeah. Right. And it's a mindset flip, right? Let me say that again. It's not trying to avoid guilt. It's what are you trying to build? And so don't look at the last thing that you came from and say, like, how do I not get convicted for the mistake of that? Right. You've got to look at the last thing you did and say, like, how do I not do that again? Mm-hmm. How do I build the next thing correctly? And so to do that, you're going to have to take massive ownership of your life. You're going to have to be humble about the situation that you're in. Some of you might be going through, like, look at Job's story in the Bible. Okay. Job didn't do anything wrong other than catch Satan's attention. Right.
That's literally what he did.
Right. Yeah. Satan's like, oh, I don't like this guy.
Yeah. Oh, and it was God. Have you seen my servant Job? I was like, Lord, what are you doing? Like, yeah, dude, I'm good, man. Like, let's just keep rolling.
So Job doesn't do anything wrong and just gets completely wiped out, like fully devastated, everything taken from him except his wife. Side point. But Job has everything taken from him and he didn't do anything wrong, right? Job's life is essentially the equivalent of like tornado or hurricane. And, if you build your house in Florida on the beach, you're somewhat complicit, right? If a hurricane hits your house. Right. Because, hurricanes come there. It's like, oh my gosh, where did this come from?
Yeah. This never happened before.
Job lives in Minnesota and his house was destroyed by a hurricane.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's like, it was the once in a generation storm.
Right. Like Job didn't do anything wrong. Yet still Job has to take ownership for his life. Right. What he has to take ownership for is the story that he tells in the midst of all of this. Right. And this is where he gets one of God's longest monologues. Yeah. Right. The point is, you got to control what you can control. But if you spend all your time pointing fingers at what you didn't do, at what other people did, blaming other people, what happens is as you're going into the next rebuild, you're not building on the right mindset. You start building on a fairness mindset. If you start like,
Man.
you know what happened to what happened
Yeah.
to Job? Not fair.
Right.
It's not fair what happened to Job. But if you try to build anything on a fairness mindset, what happens is like you start getting into entitlement, you
Yeah.
start getting angry, and you're going to build very poorly.
Right. Yeah. It's what this sounds like is like you'll look at other people's example and be like, but they, it's not really fair that I did this and I got this consequence, but I've watched so many other people do so much worse and like they're still fine. Like, I guess it's just that is a negative. That's what you're talking about. And you went.
Oh, for sure. No, when people make mistakes, they do that all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this guy did that in his marriage and his marriage is fine.
Right.
Well, you know what? Consequences just haven't caught up to him yet.
Right.
Right. Because what he's doing is wrong too.
Yeah.
And so what you've got to understand, like what Job has to understand is like, what does God say to Job when Job's angry? Where were you when I laid the earth's foundations, homie?
Yeah.
Right. Like what I'm doing is so much bigger than you.
Yeah.
And so when you're getting mad, like, oh, I did this and I get, it ruined my life. These other guys do the same thing. It's what you're trying to say is like, I should be the judge
Right.
of what consequences are. I should be the
Yeah.
judge of what's right and wrong. That's not our role.
Right.
Right. If you do something wrong, there are consequences for you. And if those consequences never catch you, that's just mercy.
Mhm.
And I don't bet on mercy, right? Thank God for his mercy and the salvation that we receive because of that. But I don't expect God to just spare me from every single thing in my life.
Yeah.
God has given me wisdom. God's given me an ability to learn. What God wants most is that I would grow and mature. And so what that means is that mercy does not teach me all of those lessons.
I think what it looks like for ownership, G, and like truly to have your life submitted to God in this part is that you're not arguing with what's happening. Like I think about Jesus whenever he's going to the, when he's going to the cross. I mean, you want to talk about unfair and no, I'm being serious. Like every good argument he could have made, and from a very just place, you'd be like, yeah, you know what, you're 100% right. But it's whenever you go, even if it hurts.
In that attitude, right? Jesus isn't saying like, I don't deserve this. Jesus is looking at it in the context of here's what I came to build.
Right. Yeah. Very, very different. And that's why the humility aspect of this is, I mean, I don't know that humility sounds good to anybody, but for whatever it hits you as, it's like what you said. You want to give your dad all the reasons as a kid, and he's just like, shoe fits, wear it.
Yeah.
And man, that's like, I've had your dad do that to me, and it's like, I'm like literally biting my tongue because I want to say something back because it's like, and I'm like, no, you just need to shut up and listen here. It's like, man, okay.
It's it's like ants. If you step on their little dome, they just go right back to rebuilding it.
Right.
And I remember as a kid, I would play with ants all the time. Like when we'd be out hunting, when I was Elijah's age and we're out hunting.
That's what he does. They kill the fire.
Just mess with them, right? And as a kid, you're like, oh, ants stink. Like I hate ants. They bite me. But you got to at least respect that about like, I can't tell you how many times I'd step on an ant's little mound. It's back the next day.
Yeah.
Step on it again. It's back the next day. That doesn't shut them down,
Right.
What they're thinking is like, I have to build.
Yeah.
And that is the mindset that you have to have about your life of, well, tornado came in or this person was mean to me or like, I tried really hard. I made a mistake, but it shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah.
What you've got to have that Christ-like attitude of no, here's what I came to build. Here's what I came to bring. And if there's anything that I need to grow, to change, whatever I've got to go through, I'm going to go through it so that I can build what I have to build. So it doesn't matter where you're coming from for 99% of the rebuilds.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about
for
this.
99% of the rebuilds listening to this podcast, you are complicit on some level. There is the 1% Jobs, right, where you didn't do anything wrong, but for everybody else, you have played a part in your rebuild on some level. And even if your wife dies of cancer, which is that's beyond you, right? Other than lifestyle contributing factors, and I'm not going to point to that. Right? Your wife dying of cancer, that's beyond you. What you are responsible for is your attitude, the story that you tell through that process. Because if you want to rebuild, if you just want to be sad and bitter, you can do that. You don't need to listen to this episode for that. But if you want to rebuild, you're going to have to examine what has happened so that we can look at what we want to happen next.
Right. I see. I mean, it sounds great to say everything in my life is because of me, right? And then you go to something like that is what we would consider tragic. And you talked about like when you're looking at what part did you play in this, like how do you respond is always under your control. Man, that is like, I don't know that when you talk about ownership, I don't that didn't cross my mind. For as much as like we spend time together and we do all this, when we were preparing and you started talking about that, about did I sow any negative seeds? Like that's a real reality check, because I think you're going to have moments of weakness. And so it's like, it's not that you had to play it perfectly, and if you don't, you should be upset, but it's realizing, look, if things start happening with your wife and you were having your dark days and you were complaining, you sowed seeds into your kids and into your family, and you told a different story than the one that you probably want to tell.
Because look at this, that what this is, it's a rebuild.
Yeah.
Right. So like, very easy to understand analogy for a rebuild is like a home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're, maybe your home got wiped out or your home took on some damage. Nick went through this in 2025. His home got water damage.
Very fresh in my mind.
And so when your house gets watered, if you've never been through this process, when your house gets water damage abatement is like a serious process, right? They cut all the drywall back. They rip out all the insulation. There's a lot of work to be done, because and that's exactly what's happening in this step, to take ownership of the process, which you've got to do, right? Something bad happened to you, right? Like your kitchen island flooded.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What if the guys just came back and like just fixed the plumbing and rebuilt the island?
Well, I could see where the mold was starting to grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Like it would have destroyed the rest of your house.
100%.
You guys would have all got sick.
Yeah.
Right. And it would have turned into way more damage.
Yeah.
Right. What happened was like there was a plumbing leak. And if you just say like, well, stupid plumbing, like why did this happen to me? Whatever. We'll fix the plumbing. There's actually more that has to be done. You've got to assess the whole situation. That's why we're saying take ownership, right? Go back and look at what's really happened and what's everything that's been damaged here. And you've got to cut out everything that's been damaged. Maybe in the midst of your divorce or your business failure, right? Like you think it was just the one thing, but you've actually got negativity in every area of your life. You've got some disease thinking in every area of your life. You've got some bad attitudes. You've got some bad mindsets. You're using some of the wrong words, and it's not just there, it's in every other area of your life. And this take ownership thought process let's just use this building analogy, water damage analogy. You've got to cut back everything that's been touched by the water, right? And so when they fix water damage in your house, they cut the drywall out, they rip the insulation out, they pull all the cabinets, all these things off the wall, and they rip up the carpet. They do everything. They make sure nothing that was a part of the original problem is still here.
Yeah.
And if you don't take ownership of the situation, what'll happen is you're like, like this is stupid and insurance isn't going to cover it. And it's not my fault. And I'm just going to, this is good enough. I'll just, okay, this drywall right here is a little wet. We'll pull that part out, but we don't need to pull all of it out. And let's just because this isn't fair.
Right.
This isn't fair that I didn't do anything wrong. And when you start having that attitude, you won't really address the root problem.
Yeah, because you don't know. I mean, this when you use that analogy, this is so real for me because I just did this 5 months ago. I'm not a builder of homes, so I don't know. So when they came in, I'll just tell everybody. So we had a leak in we have a center island in our kitchen. We have wood flooring, and we had a leak in our dishwasher. So these guys come in, and obviously I don't know. I'm like, oh, we got this leak. I call a plumber out. He's like, hey, this is worse than you thought. I'm like, okay. And he comes around and goes, look, it's creeping up the wall, the drywall on your island. And I don't spend a lot of time looking underneath where we sit in the island. I was like, oh, you're right. So I'm like, what do we do? I'm thinking maybe they'll just repair the drywall. Well,
it's nope, we have to rip out your whole first floor.
Next thing you know, these other dudes show up. They turned it looked like something from Breaking Bad. They turned our kitchen into a walled off, they put up the clear plastic.
Yeah.
They ripped up the floor. They tore out every piece of that island. Obviously banished the dishwasher. And I was like, wow, this is a lot more than I thought. I'm going, man, I don't, I'm not a dishonest person. I don't want the insurance to think I'm trying to get free flooring, which is what happened. It wasn't free, but you know what I mean? We ended up getting all new flooring for the whole downstairs because they had to abate this properly. Well, not only did they cut it out,
he saw a little bit of damage, but because he's an expert, he knows if I can see this, it means it's way worse.
Right. And so then they brought in fans for 8 days. They stripped this thing down to the studs, and I'm going great, they got rid of the water. No. They put these drying fans on it. We had this whoo in our house. You couldn't even hear the TV for 8 days of just nonstop. Just you wake up in the morning, whoo, I'm getting coffee, whoo, just these fans all the time. And to me, because I don't know, and I'm saying this for the person out there who's going oh, it'll be okay. I'll be honest, and you would mock me ruthlessly for this, so I'm just going to say it on the podcast. In my mind, I was like, maybe we could just pull this piece of flooring up and I've got some spare floorboards. We'll just put a new one down.
Yeah.
Well, you know what would have happened? We would have been fine, quote unquote, for maybe another year, 2, 3 years. And then suddenly I would have been like, man, why are we like you said, why are we getting sick? Hey, I think there's some black mold developing right here. Now, in this case, I would know what it's from. In your life, you don't know what it's from.
Yeah.
Because you don't have an abatement team.
That's called a patch.
Right.
And that's exactly why.
Yeah.
That's exactly why mortgage companies require homeowners to have insurance.
Yeah.
Because the average person, if they didn't have insurance and had to pay the bill, they'd be like, oh, you just patch that thing up.
For real.
Right. But because the mortgage company is actually the one that owns your house, they require you to have insurance because they says, I actually own this thing. And if I ever have to take it back from you, I'm going to make sure that the inside, the walls have not just been rotted out from the inside.
Yeah.
Because if you let that go on, the studs rot and the home falls apart.
Right. Now, and what's so interesting about that analogy there, G, is like we can be like, oh yeah, the mortgage company. What does the mortgage company have that you don't? Hundreds of thousands of repetitions. They learned this. They've learned this lesson already.
They've learned the lesson. The insurance company has the reps. The reason that they have fans blowing for 8 days is because they say, we're getting this right.
Yeah.
It costs a little bit more money.
Yeah.
It costs a little bit more time to run these fans for, I mean, look, honestly, if you just pull everything out, dry it off, and then shoot insulation back in there and patch it up, if you fix the water source and you got all the moisture out, you're good. Like a little bit of, because they build houses it rains.
Yeah,
and then they come in the next day and build the house. Having a little bit of moisture in there is not really the problem. But the reason they do that is because they dry it all out and then they want to look at it like, yep, this thing is dry consistently. We've isolated. We're 100% sure there's nothing else that's causing water. Because what happens is sometimes there can be, what if, your upstairs sink was leaking too?
Mm-hmm.
Just happened to be at the same time. It's like, man, we've been running fans for 8 days and it's still wet in here.
Right.
So, there's another problem.
Yeah.
Right. What the insurance companies have figured out is it is better, and it is better in the long run, and it's better statistically that we are 100% sure we fixed the problem before we rebuild, because it is way more expensive to come back and have to do this a second time.
Yeah, let me apply this to people's life. And the reason we're harping on this step is because the take ownership of the process and like realizing you're wrong and having the humility to start to look at what happened to cause it and understand, all, like Garrett said, all the things that you were complicit in, of like, I sowed this seed. Here's a great example from my own life. And unfortunately, I seem to always be the example of what not to do. But it's just, I share it because I want people to grow and because I think it's relatable. For most people, how we deal with this, and I'll use my depression. I was depressed for 6 years. I was alcohol dependent. I was just in the deepest, darkest place, and it was so ugly. And all I wanted was to not be in that place. And so to me, what repairing this looked like was, now I'm happy, now I'm present, now I'm like I'm not like that anymore, right? And it wasn't, now keep in mind, this was like in 2012. Okay, it's 2026 as we're doing this. It wasn't until you and I started the podcast, which was in 2021, that you were the first person that ever said like, hey, why were you depressed? And it wasn't like you asked me that in the first episode. You asked me that, I don't know, we were a little bit into the thing. This is 9 years. Okay, like this is a decade later, and I've never asked the question, why did I get to that point?
I don't know how it wasn't your first question.
Yeah, but Garrett, I'm saying, no, you're laughing, but because you like to laugh at me. But I'm saying this for people out there, because what this looks like and what we're talking about with your divorce is, well, hey, my next marriage is just, now we're really happy and we're even better. But did you really not just kind of go like, oh, well, my ex-wife was insert whatever, or we were incompatible, or some simple thing? What have you really looked at yourself and said, what was the part that I played? And I mean, like, brutally looked at it and really said, like, man, I need to make some changes, because like I'm using my own self, because I'm not as much as you like to laugh at how unaware I am compared to hyper aware man over here. I'm an introspective person. I always have been. It wasn't that I didn't spend time thinking, but even in my thinking, I wasn't able to get to that place of being like, man, what were the elements so that I can be really intentional? Now I know what they were. It's very obvious to me, but I went a decade without actually really uncovering that. And so I'm saying that for people out there, because we're using the abatement, we're using the water, but I want people for this to hit home. If you've had something in your life that was very difficult, that was very painful, and that you're trying to rebuild from, don't be so uncomfortable with the pain that you can't go back there and face yourself in the mirror, because that's a hard thing.
Right.
It's a hard thing to look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? It's our Cinderella Man story.
If you're
I got
just
my shot, and
if you're just having an attitude of like, I'm glad it's over and I don't want to
Right.
talk about it anymore, you're not going to be able to bear the full burden of really changing your situation.
Yeah, that's good, G. Yeah, that is it. That's the hallmark. You don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You
If you don't
just
want to
wanna
talk about it, you're not ready to
Right.
actually grow from it.
Yeah.
You're just closing your eyes and hoping something like that never happens to you again.
Very
And
good.
before we move on to the next point, I just want to give a piece of side value for some of you who are listening to this podcast and you're not in the middle of a rebuild.
Right.
Okay. I want you to catch like everything we just talked about for taking ownership. That sucks. That's
Yeah.
really hard. It's very painful.
Yeah.
Okay. Let this be a moment of sobriety for those of you who are not in the rebuild to continue to be disciplined
Mm-hmm.
and don't screw it up.
Right.
Because when you go through these, it's very hard. It's very painful. And if you'll catch, like, this is one of my favorite quotes. Benjamin Franklin said, "A wise man learns from his mistakes. A wiser man learns from the mistakes of others." Understand the pain that's coming for you if you make foolish decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to go through some rebuilds in life and you didn't make any foolish decisions, but don't go through more rebuilds than you have to in life.
Yeah, big time. All right, G. Well, we've taken ownership. Let's say that we've run through that process, and now,
Okay, I got it.
yeah, I got okay.
I messed up.
We hear
Messed
you.
up. I get it. Okay.
By the way, we spent a lot of time on that for a reason. That wasn't like, oh wow, I can't believe we spent
People
that
want
much time.
People
Yeah.
want to skip that step for the last thing Nick was talking about.
Right,
They
that's
just
exactly
wanna,
right.
They want it to go away, but they don't want to bear the burden of responsibility.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, so now we move to the place where you get to determine what you want to rebuild for and what you want to rebuild, aka what's the vision? What do you want?
Yeah. So when I watched guys quit SEAL training, okay, that's brutal. It's terrible. It kind of went one of three ways. When guys would quit SEAL training, some of them, very few, but some of them had the courage to face themselves. Great example, Michael Mansour, Medal of Honor winner,
Yeah.
went on to give his life to save multiple other people who I'll forever be endeared to because one of the men that Michael Mansour saved his life was a leader and a role model in my life, right? So it's like, man, just generations of impact from
Yeah.
what this guy did. Like he saved a few guys' lives, but those guys' lives went on to impact other people. But Michael Mansour quit his first time in SEAL training, and he quit and had the courage to say, like, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Right. Like I made a mistake. I made a poor choice. He was 18 or 19, his first try, and he came back, like 4 years later.
Right.
Had to go out to the fleet for a
Man,
while.
that's brutal.
It sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But made the change and was willing to say, like, okay, I messed up. I wasn't as capable. I made a poor decision in a weak moment, but I'm going to get better and I'm going to come back. Like I want the same as before, right? I'm not going to lower my dreams. I'm not going to give up on it. I got to take a lap. Okay, so be it. I got to take a lap. I saw some people do that. It's very few, right? There were people that I saw quit or get kicked out, right? Like they got dropped for performance on something. And I'm like, dude, you got it. You got to come back. But you can't make anybody. They have to want it.
Right.
And I watched a lot of guys. This was more common. Guys who quit. And many of the guys that I saw also get dropped for performance, right? Like I saw multiple guys get dropped for swim times in third phase. It's like, bro, you failed to swim by 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. You've passed everything else. Just, get better at swimming and come back. Like you've made it past Hell Week. You've made it past pool comp. Right. Or failed just some small test in SQT. It's like, okay, just mature a little bit, come back. You just need another attempt.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing wrong with you. Right. Like you're fully capable of this program. But I watched guys not come back. And because what they were saying was like, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. They know what's in store for them.
That was so brutal. I wouldn't be willing to climb that mountain a second time. And this is not a shot at them, but it's aspirational. To me, that's some of what the definition of a man is. In Rudyard Kipling's If, he's saying, if this, at the end, you'll be a man and more. Right. He said that whole poem is about, this is what it means to be a man. And one of his ifs is if you could lose it all and begin again.
Yeah.
Right. It takes a lot of courage as a man to begin again, but also you need to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. That's it.
You have to be honest with yourself and say like, okay, I've got to rebuild. My business blew up. My marriage blew up, whatever it is. are you willing to, like, do you want everything as before? Are you willing to go through all the same pains?
Yeah.
You willing to take that lap? Be honest with yourself. If you're not, that's okay. Like maybe your wife died of cancer and you're 50 years old and you're not looking at marriage the same way, right? It's total. Everyone's got different situations, but you need to be honest with yourself about what am I really going to rebuild? Then when you can be clear, like don't set out to reclimb the mountain when you don't really have the courage and inner fire to climb the same mountain again.
Yeah. This is if you, this kind of analogy rose because like that, if you carry the pain that you have, you're like flinching when you go into the next thing. If you've played football or played soccer in the UK, because I know we have a lot of British listeners as well, this is where it was like, it came home to me is in both those sports. What do they tell you? If you don't want to get hurt, don't go into a tackle, like whether it's in soccer or in American football, tensed up, right? Like you don't try to not get hurt. I say this, my dad, every time I would go do something, he would say to me, be careful. And I would literally respond like, Dad, I'm not going to be careful because that's how you get hurt.
I'm going all out.
No, and it seems so illogical, but I've done this, man. I've gone in like,
it's paradox.
I've gone in where I'm like, okay, there's a ball to be won there. And I'm going to throw myself completely into this. And like the other guy does the same thing. And you kind of hit off each other and you're like, all right. And you just keep going. And I've done the opposite where I'm like, I'm going to see if I can just kind of like get this without having too much. And that's when you're like, oh man, I got destroyed.
I'll say it to you differently.
Okay.
Timid people break bones.
Yeah. Yeah.
I played sports all that way in my life of like, I'm going to sacrifice my body.
Right.
I'm just throw myself at this. I never broke a bone.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of guys who have sacrificed the body and done it, but you're right. It's like when you get hurt, it's usually because
you're more likely to get hurt, like trying to halfway in it.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we're saying about the next relationship or the next business. If you half step, you get half results. So you can't say like, oh, I gave it all. And people will lie to themselves because they don't want to have to, either they're unaware or they don't want to have to face the truth of like, you were afraid to fail. And the fact that you were afraid to fail basically ensure that what you were looking at, what you focus on is where you go. I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. Well, guess what? You're rehearsing in your mind, failing. So you have to be aware of that.
So part of this is, determining what you want to rebuild and what you want to rebuild for, what your dream is understanding, okay, I screwed some stuff up last time. And that means I'm going to have to implement some new methods, some new standards based upon the lessons that I learned before, right? I might have to change some of the things that I did. When you like, okay, I want to climb that same mountain. Obviously, I didn't make it last time, right? When you and I failed on our first 100-miler, you know what we had to do? We had to train a little bit differently.
We did, man.
Right? It's like, hey, we're the same dude. I'm capable, but you know what? I tried to go run a 100-miler and didn't train for it at all.
Yeah, you did. I mean, in your defense, you did have an old military injury that flared up on you literally the whole year. Like your knee was just not good.
Yeah, it was busted, but I was also, I needed to lose a few pounds and I hardly trained at all. Right. So I was at my heaviest, right? I was 235. I was at my normal, like good weight for me, is like 210 to 220. I was 235 and didn't run at all and just, said, I'll just go for it.
Right. And I was actually in better shape the first time, but I was like, I'm just going to eat cookies.
I will say, and part of that is because like, someone just said, hey, you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'll just go with you guys.
Yeah.
Well, after it didn't work out, I was like, well, shoot.
Yeah. I'm actually going to have to try.
Now I have to want to do this.
Right.
And I didn't like failing at something. I don't like failing at anything.
Right. I gotta be honest. I remember that conversation we had in the truck right after we both had because you fell out. You're like, I'm not gonna be able to finish. And I
know I wasn't gonna make the time.
Yeah.
I could grit through it.
Yeah.
Like I kept walking.
But you would have been there like 48 hours.
Yeah. Well, as time caught off. Yeah.
Yeah. You were literally walking very slow. And I got to the point where I dropped out later on. And I remember sitting in the truck with you and I was like, the last thing I want to do is freaking do this thing again. And I remember you're saying, you're like, we're coming back here. And I knew you were right, but like inside me, I was like, you know what? I never cared about this anyways. Like, hey, gave it a shot, but like I'm so glad we did.
Yeah.
And it really is the lesson of life right there. Now, before we move on, guys,
it's a fun one for the people who, because we're getting to talk to people all the time who like they're brand new to the show and they go back and listen to everything. So you get to hear both of those. For some of you guys that are like listening at multiple episodes per day.
Yeah.
As you get through the show. It's not such a long time between,
No
the
kidding.
first run,
Yeah.
the second run.
Like, oh, they're doing it again. I'm like, no, that was a year of our lives. And like, I can't even tell you how many hours of
So
runs.
much running.
Yeah, so much running. So real quick, before we're going to move on to the next step, but before we do, I just want to, you talked about like the methods and standards being based on the lessons before. One of the things that's hard to assess, and this is why we always say you need to be running with other people, is whether you're coming from a pure heart of like, okay, I'm seeing like some greatness that I'm going for, or whether you're responding from a place of pain.
What you'll see people do is, for divorce is an example,
Yeah.
or business is an example. Now, let's talk about business. I don't want to just pick on divorce all the time. But in business, it's like, my last business partner, like he gave up on me,
Yeah.
or he was lazy, or like he lied to me. And you say, I'll just never have business partners ever again.
Right.
Right. When you make these absolute statements that you're like, oh yeah, I'll never let somebody hurt me again. I'll
Right.
never let somebody talk to me that way again. Right. When you start doing those things, it's out of a place of pain. It's out of a place of rage. You don't actually know what the problem was. So it's like cutting off your arm
Right.
because, your arm itched. It's cutting off your arm because you got a scratch. It's cutting off your arm because you got some sort of infection. You need to fix it. Don't just cut off your entire capacity of an arm.
Yeah. Yeah. Because another way of doing that as well is you could either cut it off completely, or if you had a business partner that was dishonest, it's the number one thing you look for and you over index. Like, do you need someone that's honest? Yes, you do. But they also need to be skilled. They also need to, have compatible working traits with you and have some wisdom. So like, if you're just like, hey, this guy knows nothing, but he's really honest.
Over indexing on it is like, this is the most honest person I know. This is my new business partner. It's like, well, he knows nothing about your industry.
That's exactly right. But at least you can trust him. He's got no skills either. And he's not a very hard worker, but he's honest. Okay. Like, that's not going to work out either. And that's what we're saying. Like, you need to be able to see it from a pure heart to go like, this is what's actually needed. And once again,
it's truly learning the lessons.
That's exactly
right.
it.
And that's, it's not just saying like, well, I got in a car accident, never going to drive a car again.
There you go. Solved it.
Yeah.
Great job. I'm going to stay home. All right. Not going to work. All right, G. So assuming now that, like I said to you when we were prepping this, we are taking the Abe Lincoln approach. You'll notice in this rebuild, these first two, you haven't even started doing anything yet. This is like taking time to really learn the lessons, to start to plot the new course. And like, you're really doing, like we did the Abe Lincoln, we spent 3 hours sharpening the axe. Now we get to start chopping the tree.
So it's take ownership, right? Be honest with yourself about where you're at, what you've done, and then be honest with yourself about what you really want to rebuild.
Yeah.
Right. The first thing we're going to do, if we're rebuilding your house, we're going to get the foundation right.
Right.
We're not going to build a house on the sand and then go right back and, well, let's build a house. If we could just build it back really fast, it'd be like it never happened.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, the sand will hold up this time.
And it won't be bad.
Yeah.
It won't be that bad. No, we need to address the root causes. Let's make sure that this doesn't happen again, but not by cutting our arm off.
Yeah.
Okay?
Very good.
And then the third step here, this is the actual rebuild step, but this is discipline. What is our definition of discipline? Getting yourself to do what you know to do.
Right.
Right. It's action time. You got to jump into it. It's time to rebuild. But so let's talk about what those things that you're supposed to do are. Number one, whether you chose this or you didn't choose it, or something terrible happened to you, or you made a horrible mistake, you have the blessing of a fresh start.
Yeah. Big
Right?
time.
So always enjoy, always value those fresh starts. Because even if we could take you back, to the thing that's not here anymore, there's probably some stuff in that thing that maybe isn't the cause of the problem, but some stuff that you wish was different.
Mhm.
I wish I had been more organized with this, or I wish this thing had been different, or I wish I had made some of these decisions, right? Even though those weren't the thing that blew up the deal, there's some stuff that you say like, oh, there's some additional lessons learned, some other things that I could do better, right? So the beginning of this discipline, this rebuild is, okay, now I've cut out all the damage. I have a blueprint for what I want to build. Well, let's stick to the basics first.
Yeah.
Right. Let's make sure we build by all the appropriate standards and disciplines. This is stabilizing the basics in your life. As you go back into the rebuild, don't just like take off on a sprint, right? Like, I'm going to skip project management and budget, and I'm just going to like get lumber here as fast as I can and start throwing wood up.
Yeah.
Negative, right? Come back to the basics. Make sure you do it correctly. Do it the right way. And then the second thing, right? So I just want to make sure we lay that part down. It's standardizing the basics, right? Stabilize the basics. But then the second piece, this is really big. These are the things that we need to do, make sure we focus on in this third piece, is separating identity from performance, right? If you are in the 99% of the issues that we're talking about, where your rebuild is due to something that you did, what you need to do is make sure when you look back at that thing, don't be like, man, I'm such a moron.
Right.
Right. Like I'm an idiot. I'm so dumb. I'm so stupid. I'm not a good business owner. I'm not a good, no, those aren't the things you're supposed to be saying. If you did something dumb, you should look back and be like, man, that was really dumb. I can't believe I did that.
Right.
That's different than saying I'm so dumb.
Yeah.
So what I did was really dumb. I can't believe I did that.
Let me ask you something, and this is on this point, because I've actually worked with people who have had addictions and they found AA to be very helpful, and I've actively coached them away from the thought process that people are like, well, I'm an alcoholic forever. I'm like, no, because it is an identity statement. So
yeah,
I've very much fought against that.
I think the reason that they do that is out of humility.
I understand the reasoning behind it, but I think from a greater stance, like I just don't agree with it. I'm like, you can't, as long as you're still saying that that's who you are, like that's not who God says you are. That's not who you were made to be, right? So like, I like to move beyond that. But let me ask the question I want to ask you. In Christianity, and I hear it in worship songs all the time, it's a very like, people like to say, I'm a sinner, saved by grace, right? I'm a sinner. Like, and that's like the very much like an identity-based statement. Do you think that's helpful to walk around identifying yourself as a sinner?
You know, this is story.
Right.
Okay. So the fact is that we are all sinners.
Yes.
Right. But that's not the story that I tell.
Right.
The story that I tell is that I'm a son of God.
Yeah.
Right? Born into a sinful world, born with a sinful nature. And my father loved me so much, he sacrificed so that I could know him and be like, so who is
Very
it?
different.
My identity is based upon who I was designed to be and who I'm becoming. It's not based on something that I did.
Right.
Now, it is a fact that I'm a sinner. If you kill someone, if you murder someone, it is a fact that you're a murderer, right? Are you going to identify with that for forever? Yeah. So remember what story is. Story is facts and the order and priority that you give to them. Right. So you like being an alcoholic. What is an alcoholic? Someone who sabotages their life because of how much alcohol they drink. Everywhere they go, all they're thinking about is how do I get the next drink? How long is it going to be till I drink again? We can look at someone's life and factually say alcoholic or not alcoholic. Right. But that's the same as like being I'm a sinner. Right. The fact is I have sinned and I was born sinful. Right. But that's not my identity. My identity is as a son of God.
Yeah. I didn't know how you were going to answer that, but that's what I wanted to give to people, because it's such a different, I hope you hear the level of belief, because if you're a sinner, and we actually hear guys talk about this, like talk about it a lot. They're like, well, I'm never going to be able to not sin. Yeah. And it's like, is that really what the focus, like where you're at, you kind of giving up and throwing in? It's like, no, if you're redeemed, if you're a son of God, A, that's not the point of your life, but B, like what's possible?
The way a son of God looks at his sin, it says like, oh, I can't believe I did that.
Right.
I made a mistake again. God, thank you for your love. Thank you for your grace and mercy. Help me be better. Help me to this. I mean, this is my prayer every single day, right? Father, forgive me. I sin every day, whether I mean to or not, whether it's little or big, right? Yeah. I sin every single day. Yeah. Right. And the more you grow and mature, the more the Holy Spirit can like, there's who I am today, 10 years ago, that person would be like, man, that dude's pretty, that's a spotless dude. Right. There. But I don't feel that way about myself, because the more I grow and the more I mature, the Holy Spirit continues to convict me on new things. Yeah. And so there's more sin that I'm removing from my life. So every single day, my prayer is, Father, forgive me of my sins. Help me to be more like you. Well, let there be more of you and less of me. Yeah. Let my words sound like your words and not my words. Yeah. I pray this prayer every single day. And so I'm continually trying to remove sin out of my life. But again, what I'm identifying when I do sin, because sometimes I make willful sins and I'm like, man, that was really dumb. Yeah. Right. I'm like that. I can't believe I did that. That's not me. That's not who God made me to be. That's not who God wants me to be. God, help me to not be that way. Yeah.
Gee, that's so good. I'm glad that you're sharing that, because I always want to be a level up for people. And if you're going like, oh, I'm not sure about that, let me put it in a different way. The basketball player that misses the game-winning shot doesn't go like, well, I'm just a loser. It's like, I can't wait to take the next one. Right. That's the difference between having an identity of knowing you're a champion and knowing you're made to win, as opposed to like being 100% identified by the results of your actions.
This is one of the key ones, the separating identity from performance here for your rebuild, because a lot of people like brand new, fresh on a restart, identity looks good. Okay. But as soon as like, the last time you took the ship out, a storm came in and wiped you out. And when you set out from the harbor on this next one, the seas look good until the storm starts rolling in and you start thinking, oh no,
Yeah.
this is going to be just like last
I've seen this movie before.
Yeah. And that you start telling that old story.
Yeah.
And I promise you, the things you're most afraid of will find you. Right? If you're so afraid, what if I really am the guy who misses the shot? What if I'm just like last time? What if I really am an alcoholic? What if I am just someone, what if I'm not really meant to be a great person? What if I'm not really meant to succeed? If you start telling that story, you'll end up there 100%, right? Until you begin to identify with who God made you to be and start telling the story of like, well, what if God shows up in this? What if, the last storm was just for a lesson and I got to grow and mature. Actually, even if God sent that storm for me to grow and mature, I look back at that storm and be like, yeah, I actually made some mistakes. There's some stuff I should have done different. I'm not going to do those things this time. And I believe that God has a plan for my life and I'm supposed to get on the other side of these things. And I'm actually excited about this storm now because I'm going to show myself that that's not who I am.
Yeah. What Garrett just gave you is the literal self-talk of what faith sounds like in your head. It gets me pumped hearing you say that, man, because I'm like, let's go. Like that's when you do
it
great
really
things.
comes down to the story you're telling yourself. And, I was sharing this yesterday and I want to make a parallel to identity. I need to talk about this more anyways, what I was sharing yesterday at Mighty Men. But I was talking about how guys about playing your part in the story.
Yeah.
And how with purpose, like you really do have to let go of your old story, right? The story that you wanted to tell of your life, what you thought your life was going to be about, whatever you thought a hero was, any of that, like what you admired, what your picture of success was. You have to let go of all of that and take on God's story. And what I said yesterday was a lot of people struggle to do that because they feel like somehow God's story is going to be a disappointment to them.
Right.
Well, like I've always wanted to be a millionaire. Let's just take this for example. I've always wanted to be a millionaire. And if I really let go of that, what if God doesn't want me to be a millionaire? Well, I want to be a millionaire. So if God doesn't want to be a millionaire, I'm going to be disappointed for forever.
Right.
Right. I think it would be a strange thing to say that God doesn't want you to be a millionaire, but let's just say, for example, that he didn't.
Yeah.
It's not what you're called to. I promise you that if you'll let go of those things, let God really change your heart, right? The Bible says the Lord give you the desires of your heart. But James also says you don't receive what you ask for because you ask wrongly. Yeah. You're asking not in line with what God made you to be. What if I told you that God will give you every desire of your heart? ... If your heart is for him. And God can change your heart and give you a heart that's for him. Wouldn't you love to receive the desires of your heart? Right? It's the most wonderful thing when everything you've wanted and everything you dream for comes true. Yeah. And you can have that, but not in the story that you write. It's in the story that God writes. Yeah. Right. And so identity works the same way, right? The reason you keep your life keeps looking like a tragedy is you keep trying to follow your own story. Yeah. Right. You got to get onto, so then that's the performance-based identity. If I could just win, if I could just succeed, then I would know who I am. God does not want you to succeed if that's the story that you're telling. God will probably, if he's a good father, and he's probably going to get in your way, right? If you winning isn't going to mature you and grow you in him, a good father is going to get in your way. Yeah. He's not going to let you win. It's like, you were actually doing everything right, and I'm sending storms your way, son. Yeah. Because I don't want you to win in this, because it's not going to help develop you into who I am. Yeah. When I have messed up, or when I have faced storms in my life, I think, you know what? Maybe I had that coming. Why God loves me and wants me to grow and succeed. Why would he not step in and give me favor? If God didn't give me favor in this, it's probably because there's lessons that I need to learn. Yeah. Very good, man. Very good. All right, G, we are, and then the last piece of the because this is the actual actions of the discipline of the rebuild. So get the basics right. Don't screw up on the basics. Stay disciplined in the basics. You can get all this other stuff right. And you know what? A year from now, 2 years from now, you start tripping in the basics, you're due for a rebuild. Yeah. So don't do it. Yeah. Don't do it. Stay on the basics. Don't get locked into the wrong identity. Operate from a God identity. And then the last one is what I call resource recruitment. Okay. If your house flooded, we got to do all the abatement, fix it all, like really take it back to the studs. But also Also, that plumbing leak came from somewhere.
Yep.
And when they rebuilt your plumbing, I promise you they didn't rebuild it the same way.
Right. They didn't actually have to rebuild the plumbing. It was a dishwasher that leaked, and I got a brand new dishwasher.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, G, I went out and got the nicest one I could get because I was like, I don't want to do this again.
Well, like a lot of homes that'll have like old leaky plumbing, you know what's happened over time? Housing standards keep getting better.
Right.
Right? There's all these things that home inspectors inspect. You know, the same way that in the military, they said, don't throw smoke grenades in refrigerators because somebody did that and it was really bad.
Right.
All these housing standards get built out of like, well, you know, we were doing this and bad things kept happening. So we wrote a new code that says, don't do that.
Right.
And what happens is if you have like old leaky plumbing, you probably have like some really old material, right? Like we'll see what happens in 30 years with the homes that are built today, but the material quality is better, especially around like the really important stuff, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Material quality is better and the standards are dramatically different.
Yeah.
Right. Insulation is way different, right? Like the way they treat material, all these things are way different. And so 25 years, 30 years from now, your house is probably going to last a little bit better than a home that you have today that's 30 years old.
Yeah.
So the point that I'm making is when they rebuild your plumbing or when they rebuild anything, they're probably most likely, if you have a plumbing leak, it's not in a 2-year-old house, right? Because the plumbing standards were pretty good 2 years ago and the material quality is really good 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're going to come back and they're going to improve it. They're going to make it better than it was before. What I'm saying is, right, if your last business failed, there's probably some stuff that you did wrong, but at the same time, you're probably actually just missing some team members. You're missing some processes and standards. You learned something about marketing that you didn't know before.
Right.
You learned something about product market fit you didn't learn before. You learned something about accounting that you didn't learn before. Whatever it is, you got to get that new thing into your whatever the new system is. You need a new team member. You know what? We sucked at this last time. We're going to get that person in here.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't have this standard in my life about what a man should be in my marriage. Well, I'm going to get that right. Oh, you know what? My last life that I blew up, I had no tribe around me. I'm going to get involved in a tribe. I'm going to have some other strong families and strong men around me. This third piece is resource recruitment. There's probably something you were missing on your last build. Make sure you get it in your next one.
Yeah. So good, G. All right. So we got those down, man. We've taken ownership of the process. We've determined what we want for the rebuild. And now we've started doing it. We've got the discipline. What happens?
All of these things. So it's the third step and really the building is discipline.
Right.
Okay. Discipline is beautiful. Discipline will build so many things in your life over time.
Ah, shoot. You mean I got to do this for a long time?
Go try to be like ultra David Goggins discipline in the gym for 6 weeks.
Yeah, dude, I did it.
You'll lose a few pounds.
Yeah, that's right.
Your face will look different in the mirror.
Right.
Great. It's not going to be what you want it to be. The really special things, the big, beautiful home of a life that you want, the big, beautiful home of a business, of a marriage, of whatever it is, it takes time. It takes years.
Yeah.
So if we've got the right foundation, we cut out all of the nonsense. We were honest with ourselves. We, like Jesus talked about, we counted the costs. We decided what we really wanted to build, allocated all the time, resources for it, have a sober mind about, okay, this is going to take a long time. This is what I really want to build. This is what it takes to build something this way. This is all of the pieces that I need. And then I got really disciplined about doing the right thing. I got the right resources around me. I'm not building from the wrong mindset. I'm not building from anger. I'm building with purpose. I'm building with purity. Get all of that right. And then all you need to add to it is time.